guys? Hey guys, how's it going? It's Garage Goons, the most trash show on YouTube. And today, talking about TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen, um, UFC Fight Night that just happened. Really great card, guys. Really great card. Lots of violent, awesome comeback fights. It just kind of seemed like everybody was just hungry that night. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like the UFC fight nights have been killing pay-per-views for a long time. And I think it's because the guys on the pay-per-views are the big names, are the stars. So it's in their best interest to lose. And some of these guys fresh off the Contender Series and everything else on these fight nights have something to prove. And TJ was no different. Even though TJ is a big name, he still had something to prove. I don't know how much stake people put into it, but if you recall, Cody Garbrandt, when they were trash talking for their pressers back in the day, he said, hey, you came into Team Alpha Male, all of us, how to do, all the dirty stuff you were doing, So it kind of depends on what you believe happened, how much stake you put into what happened, why it happened. I'm a believer in context. Before I get into the fight between him and Sandhagen, I'm a believer in context, right? So do I hold Anderson Silva in the same light as, a Chael Sonnen, for example, or, a Hector Lombard, or, a John Jones, for example, because he cheated? Well, I don't know. To me, I don't know, call it crazy, but there's different levels to cheating in every sport all the time. In NFL, we don't care, right? All right, take your 4 games, come back. Nobody ever talks about it. It's never brought up. In baseball, it's like the biggest deal ever. The rules changed in the early 2000s. They said, hey, I know you guys, we let it all slide because all the ratings went up with Sosa and McGuire, but you guys got to get off the sauce now. And some guys followed suit. Most guys didn't. And that's why you get Barry Bonds and all these other guys. Alex Rodriguez comes to mind, popping and people tarnishing their legacy. And I think MMA has started to go that route, the baseball route. People only talk about cheating. And I get it, man. But listen, this is not an excuse, but we all see these fighters, man. I knew Hector Lombard was dirty way before he got caught. I knew Chael Sonnen when he was, a 38-year-old man with a bunch of back knee on there, was playing dirty too. I mean, a lot of these guys are super obvious. Like, there's no getting around it. You know what you're looking at. I'm waiting for Yoel Romero to pop, man. I know he already did once, and he got off on that tainted supplements thing. He had a foolproof plan in place and good lawyers and whatever else he needed to get that one knocked off his. But I'm not fooled, man. You can't be the only 40-year-old dude looking like a Greek god. It just doesn't happen. But before we get too far in the weeds here, TJ Dillashaw coming off a 2-year suspension for EPO. EPO, for you guys that don't know, it's blood doping. Okay, it gets more oxygen in your blood. It allows for faster recovery, and better endurance. When your lungs are conditioned and your body is trained to the maximum, the only way you can push past a certain point is to, get your body to produce more, I think it's red blood cells, right? Yeah, red blood cells. And a lot of ways, there's natural ways to do this, guys. You can train in altitude. A lot of guys train in altitude because your body adjusts. A lot of guys go to Big Bear, or they'll go to, Colorado or Mammoth. There's a lot of different places guys like to train. So that way that, there's less oxygen there. So your body naturally creates more blood cells. And then when you go back down to sea level, you're a superhero, man. Your cardio's on another level. But the cheat way, the backdoor way, is EPO. It's, if you know anything about Lance Armstrong, that was his deal. He called it liquid gold. I think he did it injectable. I think you could take it in pills. There's all kinds of ways, but essentially the reason why I don't really hold TJ to the same standard as, let's say, a guy that pops for some testosterone, like anabolic steroid, right, is he's still a cheat, right? There's no getting around that, but he was trying to make weight. He's fought at 135 his whole career, and he was one of the bigger guys at 135, and he was trying to cut down to 125. And I think that he didn't want to sacrifice, he talks about his levels being low of iron and all these other things. He talks about potentially being anemic. And shout out to Chael Son, your Bad Guy podcast. Love what you're doing, man. But yeah, he was trying to make weight. It was definitely an advantage in training for sure. But I don't know. It wasn't like Lance Armstrong, who was taking EPO like at pit stops doing the Tour de France. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he just tried to do that to get down to 125, and keep all of his iron and vitamins and everything else and proteins at a baseline level. And it's just proof that, hey, your body will tell you no at some point. I mean, TJ Dillashaw at 135 doesn't look like he can lose weight at that. Like you see some guys like Frankie Edgar when he was fighting at 155, you said, he looks like he walks around at 155. He doesn't have like six-pack abs. Like he was always in great shape, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't like cut up, like just lines and veins everywhere. TJ's always looked like lines and veins everywhere. So getting down to that weight, it takes a little something extra. I mean, you're going to have to change when you're already that efficient at a weight, when you want to drop down, you're going to have to sacrifice. And that's, I think, where the blurry line was with TJ. He didn't want to have to sacrifice strength. He didn't want to have to sacrifice how he felt. He didn't want to feel disgusting and sick. And like a lot of these guys do on weigh-in day, he wanted to feel good, and he cheated. But here we are years later. Him versus Sandhagen had a lot to prove, called out the only guy in the division that was really highly ranked that wasn't scheduled for a fight upcoming. And Sandhagen is a very creative, very violent, and very long rangy, tough to deal with fighter. Now, the book on Sandhagen has always been this guy striking wise. He's the hardest guy to maybe him and O'Malley are the two hardest guys to deal with in the division because A, they're just longer than everyone else, and B, they're so creative and they stay long. They're not throwing a lot of looping punches unless it makes sense. They're not throwing a lot of looping shots. They stay long by throwing a lot of straight shots, right? And so when you're 135, you're probably going to be between 5'4" and 5'8". You're not going to be 5'11" like these other two dudes I just mentioned are. That's just not going to happen. So how he uses his strategy to his advantage is a very similar way to John Jones. John Jones is 6'6", and for the longest time had the longest reach in all of the UFC, including heavyweights. So at 205, no one was able to get inside of him. The only reason why Gustafsson the first time they fought gave him some trouble is because Gustafsson has really long slinky legs, but his arm reach isn't the same. But Gustafsson has crazy kicks, and John Jones wasn't really trying to take it to the ground. He wanted to prove he was the biggest, baddest striker. He wasn't going strategy at that point in his career. But the book on Sandhagen has been, okay, he's a good striker, but you get inside on him, you put him on his ass. He's openly admitted, I suck at wrestling. And I think you saw vast improvements. Sandhagen was, shooking off takedowns left and right. His sprawl looked good. His underhooks looked phenomenal. You could tell they worked a lot in the open mat and seeing a standard classic GSP, that type of open mat, drop to your front knee and shoot type, defense for wrestling. But what I will say is I don't know that his camp emphasized went levels deep with that, because one thing I did notice is TJ continued to get to the back of Sandhagen in a standing position. Sandhagen probably didn't feel too threatened, because normally you're feeling threatened when some guy takes you from behind because you're thinking, okay, suplex, or you're thinking he might jump and pull, a rear naked choke or something of that nature. Well, the unique situation for Sandhagen and TJ, and you saw it a couple times in the fight, TJ's 5'6". and a compact 5'6". He's not like, he doesn't have super long arms, or like he doesn't have one of these weird bodies where he's very all limbs, like a Aljamain Sterling type guy. No, he's a compact fighter, and he knows his bread and butter. He knows what he's good at. Great footwork, very dominant Cruz-esque footwork, but I would say a little bit more aggressive and a little less side to side, a little less square. His stance is a little bit more orthodox, whereas Dominic always seems to be square. So like, yes, he switches stances a lot, but TJ still has more of a classic fighting stance where one leg's always forward, and TJ can switch and give you different looks and make you adjust to him the whole time, which is one of his powers. But one thing he struggled with was the range. And I think what's evident is because they've trained before, guys. Now, remember, these guys used to be sparring partners. When TJ got in that compromised position with Corey, when he had his front leg stuck in a potential leg lock scenario, potential heel hook, which is a very, very dangerous. I've done my fair share of jiu-jitsu, and I used to be an amateur mixed martial artist. I'm not bragging or anything. I took my fair share of L's in the cage, and also, in my kickboxing career too. That was competitive as well, but that's besides the point. When I rolled, one of the scariest things, and one thing they always told us to tap on as soon as you feel the slightest bit of pressure, is a heel hook. And the reason for that is every other hold, armbar, Kimura, Americana, any type of crank on a limb, an arm, a knee bar, you feel that right away. You can feel it. It's painful. You say, tap, you tap the guy, you start over, you roll again. Heel hooks are weird and leg locks are strange because you don't really feel the pressure. All of a sudden, it just goes. So that's when you're taught. You might feel a little bit of pressure. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's not the pain. You don't feel, it's weird. You don't feel pain like you would feel in an armbar when they're slowly hyperextending your elbow. You're not feeling the pain that you feel in your shoulder when, a shoulder lock is happening, Kimura or Americana. You don't feel that. What you feel is slight pressure, but you're like, oh, that's just pressure. I can deal with that. Well, the problem is your ligaments don't have nerves like that. It's not pulling a whole bunch of rotator cuffs and muscles that are in place and fighting that. It's fighting just a few thin strips of muscle that hold your joint together. So you feel just a little bit of pressure, and then all of a sudden it pops, and then you're fucked. So I think that's exactly what Sandhagen did to TJ. And I know TJ's talking about wanting to fight in October. Guys, I know he fought on that knee, but he said he heard a pop from a guy. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I do have scar tissue right here. I've had ACL surgery. When I played football, I tore my ACL and all my MCL as well. Full reconstructive knee surgery. They cut open my patella and used that to mend my other tendons together. It took me about 6 months to get straight movement, and it took me about 8 to 9 months to get lateral movement, and it took me fully a year to be comfortable and not question, okay, how much weight can I put on this? Okay, can I make lateral movements? Can I be athletic and move side to side? It took me a full year. Now I know these guys, I'm not a professional athlete. Okay. I didn't have the best medical doctors and trainers in the world working with me every day, cutting edge medication, going overseas, doing stem cell stuff. I don't have that. So, I guess a year was probably a little long, but guys, I think it's a big mistake if TJ takes the winner of Aljamain versus Petr Yan, because it just, to me, that compromised knee, I mean, maybe Sandhagen didn't realize it to the full extent during the fight, but these other guys trust and believe are going to be kicking the crap out of that thing. And he might not have the flexibility or the fast twitch muscle ability to get that thing up and check it and put weight on it and shift and be the TJ we know to be. TJ is not a static fighter. TJ is not a tuck your chin down, move forward Dan Henderson and wait for the big shot fighter. He's not. He's a very, very springy, squirrely, never stays in the same place, great head movement, really relies on lateral movement, stance switches. Those knees are crucial to him, guys. And I think if anything, you know, this fight proved that, hey, he's still elite. Let's answer that question right now. It wasn't the drugs, okay? And I know a lot of you guys were screaming, robbery, Sanhagen got robbed. He split open his eye and he hurt his knee. Listen, from a judge sitting on the side of the table, right? Sanhagen didn't hear the knee pop. The only guy that knew the knee pop for sure was TJ. So if you're a judge on the table and you see a guy's leg fully extended and maybe the other guy's going for something funny, but all the while he's going for it, he's getting pounded in the face while TJ's in his half guard, you're going to score that for TJ. I scored it 3-2, and I can understand. I'm not going to argue if you had Sanhagen 3-2. I heard, I remember Anthony Smith said he scored it 4-1, but let's be honest, guys. The most dominant rounds, in my opinion, were TJ. Okay, if you look at significant striking, all right, it was pretty close. You got to count the leg kicks too. I know for some reason people like to grade face punches more than leg kicks, but let's be honest. In recent history, leg kicks do a lot of damage. Okay, you can ask Chris Weidman, Conor McGregor, and Anderson Silva about leg kicks doing damage. That's a real thing, guys. And even Sean O'Malley, when Chito Vera kicked him on that nerve or whatever, and his leg went limp, that's a big deal. So we got to stop this whole, well, he got punched in the face, so that's more dominant. I don't know anymore. It seems like these guys' chins are holding up nowadays better than half these dudes' knees and legs out here. So we got to take that into account. The other aspect is, guys, regardless of how you feel in the striking, nobody got knocked down the whole fight. And the striking count was fairly even. Okay, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember at the end of the fight, it was Sanhagen had a lot more head strikes. TJ had a lot more leg strikes. It was pretty close with the whole body thing. But remember, Mike Goldberg, when he used to explain what the judging criteria is, if you're an old school UFC fan, back in the day, he used to say effective striking, grappling, aggression, and octagon control. Okay, well, let's go down the list. Effective striking. All right, fine. You want to say Sanhagen? I get it. He busted TJ open. One guy definitely looked like he took a worse beating than the other, and TJ was that guy that looked like he took a worse beating. Fine. Let's talk about grappling. Okay, not much grappling going either way. But the guy that did get takedowns, TJ, the guy that did maintain top control and at least from a judge's perspective was on top and in a more dominant position, regardless of how you feel about the leg lock. Okay, it's hard to see that in real time as a judge if he was doing anything for it. You could count that as a submission attempt, but you didn't see it. You didn't. There was no popping of the. There was no like snapping of the leg. Right. It wasn't obvious if it did happen. Okay. TJ's on top. Okay, let's talk about let's stay on with grappling. I don't know if they're counting the standing and taking the back, getting around the back, and kneeing to the hamstrings and kneeing to the ass and kneeing to the quads that TJ was doing, and the dirty boxing from behind while he was grabbing Sanhagen from behind, wrapping up, bear hugging him like this. I don't know if they count that as grappling, but if we're talking aggression and octagon control, that's definitely octagon control. You're controlling the octagon. You're controlling where your opponent is. You're controlling what the opponent's focused on, trying to break your grip, trying to figure out how he can get out of this, trying to see if he can backspin and throw an elbow real quick, try to get out. And then lastly, let's talk about aggression and octagon control, right? TJ's coming forward the whole fight. All of Corey Sanhagen's best shots were off of him backing up, and that is a talent. Okay. Lyoto Machida made a career off of backing up. Okay. Backing up and being able to throw, stepping back and being able to throw straight shots. But that strategy can backfire sometimes. I don't know. Go way back with me. Go way back. All right. Lyoto Machida versus over the hill Rampage Jackson. You guys remember that fight? Rampage was on like a 2-3 fight losing streak. He was having problems with the law. He got caught doing 130 on the freeway in his Audi R8, whatever. And he was going through a crisis because Forrest Griffin took his belt away and he didn't know how to handle it. He just didn't know what to do with himself. So they said, all right, Machida's want to move up to 205. Listen, man, he's a top ranked, top 5 guy, top 10 guy. If you can beat him, we'll give you another shot. And then to his credit, he got to fight John Jones for the belt and got destroyed after that. But he won that fight. Guys didn't like it, but he was the one coming forward the whole time. He was the one throwing the hard shots, and Lyoto's striking was more effective. Okay? Lyoto's striking didn't have much on it because he was running for his life on his bicycle the whole time, but Rampage came forward. And why did he get the decision? Why did Rampage get the decision? I don't remember him landing a clean shot all fight. I think he might have landed like a couple of hooks to the body, a couple of leg kicks, but outside of that, Rampage, I think, went for a slam one time when Machida went for like a triangle choke or an armbar or something from Rampage being in his guard. But Rampage won that fight because he was coming forward. Octagon control, aggression. When the striking guys, you can make an argument either way. You have to go down the checklist of, okay, what's the next criteria? Aggression and octagon control. That was TJ. Watch it again. He's coming forward the whole time. The striking's even. If you want to say, oh, well, Tyler, it's not just striking, it's effective striking. Well, what's effective striking? If the only striking that's effective is busting people's faces open, then I guess Nate Diaz should never win a fight, right? He's never the more effective striker because he has scar tissue on his face and he bleeds after you flick him in the forehead. Guys, TJ deserved the win, in my opinion. And honestly, it was split decision. And if Sandhagen won, I told everybody, like, yo, whoever wins, they deserve it, man. When it's that close, there's no such thing as robbery, man. You leave it in the hands of the judges. The strike count is even. You can make a case either way, regardless of what you say. I understand TJ had less flashiness to his fighting, but in my opinion, he had the more dominant rounds, and he's always the one pushing the pace. So when nothing else is happening, if all you see is one guy going forward and the other guy backing away, hey, it is what it is, guys. That's all I have on that. I hope that there's nothing wrong with TJ's knee. I hope that he recovers fully. I hope that maybe it's an MCL partial or I just hope nothing bad happened, but he said he heard a pop. And a knee is not like a shoulder where it can pop in or it can pop out and you can pop it back in and just go on about your business. It's tough, man. That you hear a pop in the knee, it's almost always 100% calls for immediate surgery. And if you put the surgery off, you're going to be severely compromised. So even if he gets medically cleared, he's not going to be the DJ that we're used to seeing, being very, very springy side to side, left to right, hard to hit, always changing angles, always bouncing around, being a little gnat and coming forward and destroying you. So I think Corey Sandhagen still has a bright future. I think this could be a potential future title fight. I think automatically if TJ is somehow, hopefully his knee's okay. I don't wish injury on anyone. If he comes back, if he's able to rehab the knee, maybe it's a sprain, maybe just, I don't know. I don't know what that pop here was, but let's say best case scenario, it's just he sprained it, whatever. He's just got to stay off it for a little while, maybe rehab it, whatever the case may be. It doesn't require surgery. Hopefully he can fight the winner of Aljo and Jan, and then they set up the Corey Sandhagen fight. I don't think Sandhagen needs to fight anybody else. After a performance like that, you don't need to fight anybody else. So I know that's unpopular opinion, but the only fight that really makes sense outside of that, in my opinion, is him versus O'Malley. I think that's just a fun one for the fans. But I think Rob Font and O'Malley already called out Rob, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I think if Sandhagen's willing to take a fight with O'Malley, that's the only fight I would like to see that doesn't involve Sandhagen fighting for a title at this point. And I think the loser of Jan versus Sterling is gonna probably have to, build their way back up, especially if it's Aljo's, because let's be honest. If he wants to get a win the way he got last time, no problems with you getting a win, but that's no way to get a belt, man. You should have to earn the belt. You don't just get the belt. You should have to earn the belt. You don't always have to earn your wins. Sometimes the guy could cheat and DQ himself, and that's on him. He should know the rules. But come on, guys. You shouldn't get a belt off of something like that. But anyways, if TJ is 100%, which I don't think he is, but if he does come back 100%, I think there's nothing stopping him from getting the strap back and, at least having another nice 1 to 2 year run with him having the belt. But I don't think, I think that TJ is at his peak, at his prime, and the downslope is very close. And I think Sandhagen is only getting better. So I think TJ's got to watch out next time, and hopefully that knee's okay. And I think it'll be a fun fight no matter what, because anytime guys train together, it's always awesome watching that kind of rivalry, because they know the ins and outs. They know what the other person likes to do. So, yeah, Garage Goons, the most trash show on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I appreciate you guys. We'll be doing more UFC breakdowns. I'll be having more guests on. Stay tuned, man. It's awesome. Thank you again for watching, and we are out of here.